Hi everyone, Boots Allen here, tying up a streamer for you today. This is streamer, some folks call the raghead, some folks call a dirty head, which is a popular reggae band at the moment. This is going to involve a wire brush. We're going to get this started. I'll call kinds of sizes you could use. We're going to be going with something in the size 4 range, size 2 range. I've done them down to 10s and done them up to 2 aughts. It's a single hook fly. I'm a big fan of the articulated stuff, but like Kelly Gallup says, there's all kinds of stuff that can be done with these, with your what is now considered moderately sized flies, moderately sized streamers. When I was younger, what I'm going to tie here, would be considered a gigantic streamer. Not so much nowadays. We'll get started here. I've already got the bead onto the hook, and of course you can use tungsten or copper or brass. I like going black with it, but it all just depends on what kind of weight you want on it. I've gotten back into using the weight along with some lead-free wire wrap. We're not going to do that with this one, but that assists in it. And then I will fish a sinking tip as much as I'll fish a floating line. Sometimes I'll even use a sinking line, so that'll assist you in getting that pattern to be where you want it to be in the water column. Get our thread on here. This is just olive thread. Get that right on back because we're just getting. This is a pretty simple pattern. Not much to it, which are most flies really. This one will be kind of a mix of chartreuse and a bright olive. We're going to use just some zonker strips here, as you can see. And these are not magnums, these are just your regular sized. Give this a snip. I have married 2 strips together, almost like a double bunny. A quad bunny. I don't do that with this one. When I first started to saltwater fish, I'd have toads with me. Toads were, basically the rabbit fur played such a big role in that. And if you think about it, tarpon are typically looking up at a toad, and most of the stuff we're fishing are just kind of slightly above them. And I asked some of the guides, this is in Belize, Mexico, Bahamas, would it be better to have it with the fur down so they didn't see the hide part of it? And they all told me, nah, no, fur side up, and so that's how we're doing this. This will just be, again, we're not marrying one in here, we're just going to do one piece here, get this tied on. And of course, rabbit fur can get everywhere. Not a lot of static cling to this today. I do use a fair amount of rabbit. If it starts to get a lot of cling going on, I basically will take a strip of bounce and get that all over my hands, and that'll help quite a bit. I've got that piece down there. I'm now going to give this a snip right here. And a snip right there. And get her latched down just a bit more. And we're on there. And you can see it's starting to come forward a bit now, so there's starting to be some cling going on with it. Next we're going to get on some dubbing. I'm using Senyo's laser dub for this today. Just this stuff right here. We're going to use this kind of bright chartreuse for that right there. We'll get that on. I'm going to get my gold wire on there first and foremost. That'll help keep that material down in a good way after it's on. Roll that forward. I'm going to flip this back over. Roll that back again. I'm going to wet down this thread here. And this body material that we're doing here, this is going to get covered up by a lot of the material that'll be tied on next. So some folks feel it's inconsequential what you have down there. I like to think there's some consequence to it. So I'm going to get that on like so. No need for a dubbing loop with this, but you can certainly do so if you wish. Sometimes I use a dubbing loop for flies, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I use a dubbing loop for one specific fly all the time, and sometimes I don't. Alright, got that on there. Get that going there. I'm going to go ahead and whirl this around and actually use the rotary for this. I'm going to backtrack there a bit. Come back again. Get this tightened up some. Right about there. Then I'm going to cross wrap my wire. Just going in the opposite direction. A few wraps. Nothing major. And to cut this, I'm going to use a pair of dull scissors so I don't dull my good ones, which are actually starting to go dull. So we got that on right there. You can see a little bit of bulk right here. Once again, probably not of consequence. I'm going to get in some Flashaboo here. Get this tied on this side first and foremost. I'm going to go right to the hook. Wrap it forward some. Fold her over, wrap her back. I'm going to cut her right about the length of that tail material. Do the same on the other side. Trim down. And of course you can do as much of that as possible, or as you want to, I should say. There's a fly out there I'm a big fan of called a Little Kim, and Little Kim has a lot of flash to it. And some folks think a lot of flash is a little intimidating to trout. I don't think that's the case, just based on the way the Little Kim works. So this is a wire dubbing brush here. Well, not a wire dubbing brush, but a wire brush. I've made these before using a power drill, basically, because it's really hard to get a tight piece of wire going. with that material, a drill will help out quite a bit, a power drill. But it's also time consuming, and so I don't have a lot of time on my hands anymore, so I go this route. And we're going to get this tied in here now. I'm going to bring that forward, bend that wire back, and double over it. Boop. And that one I measured correctly, so I didn't have to do any cutting there. Bring that right forward to the bead, or the cone, and then you start to wrap this. And you can pull that material back with each wrap. And you're essentially almost making a sculpin head. And I'm going to get that in really tight to that cone. I might do one more there. I'm just going to build in a fair amount of thread in there, help get that bead a little bit tighter. And then we'll get our whip finished. And there we go, we got that baby finished. And if you think about that, that's kind of a sculpin. All this material will lay down as she's being retrieved through the current. Use this for trout of all species. I've used it some for bass, but I've really sized it down quite a bit. But there you go, the rag head or the dirty head, depending on who you ask.